Guten Tag und grüß Gott. Today is August the 21st, 2020. It's a Friday. It's the end of the week, so to speak. But for us who are so homebound, who knows exactly what that means? It's interesting times. So what I want to do is, first of all, my wife Marge relented to my barrage of requests to be with me here today because I love to talk to a person. And, and the only two people in this house are my wife Marge and I. So here we are. Anyway, hi Marge.
Hi.
So today being August the 21st, let's look at the historical calendar. I always put this up because I kind of want to make this part of the video. So why is that important? In 2017, Big Ben is silenced for 4 years. And evidently that has been important over the years because, even during the Blitz, Big Ben wasn't destroyed. And it was very few times that it actually was silenced. It was silenced, for certain memorial days and that kind of thing, but not very often. But now it's having this huge rebuild, and it'll be opening up in, next year because they shut it down for 4 years. This is 2017. So this clock tower was first used in 1859 and survived the German bombings, so that's kind of significant. And it been briefly silenced, for the death of Winston Churchill. And who else do you think they would do that for? Oh, the Brits, Maggie Thatcher. Okay, so this is a big deal. This is a big deal with them. But what they will do during this restoration, because this is a major overhaul, it hasn't had just minor services over the years. So what they're going to do is actually, they mentioned here that they're going to maybe ring it on New Year's Eve and Remembrance Sunday. So this is kind of like Veterans Day to the Brits, and remembering their fallen and their veterans who sacrificed so much for their country. Anyway, but the previous session was on August the 13th, and so I want to go back to the calendar to see if we pick anything notable up. And I don't know why that would be notable. In 1751, a woman poisons her father over the fortune. Oh, my goodness, my goodness. In 1971, Richard Nixon attempts to boost the Dow. Oh, I wonder how he did that. So he froze wages and sent and rent for 90 days and ended America's policy of converting foreign money into gold, which helped the Dow recover for 1 day. Well, that was a big deal, huh? But, we're having protests, now, and there are all kinds of protests. But in 1841, an effigy of John Tyler is burned in front of the White House. President John Tyler refusal to endorse the Bank of the United States was very unpopular. And so they burned an effigy, and protesters showed up. Oh, wow. 1945, Indonesia declares independence. Well, everybody at that point in time exited the colonial system. Just within a few years, everything kind of changed. There was the African Revolution, from one place to another, and I think in the 60s, I remember how the Belgian Congo got independence, So it all happened within the next decade or so, between 45, 55, 65, that kind of thing. But then we have North Korea. They're still there. Well, they're not colonialists, but they sure have a closed country. Anyway, Indonesia declared its independence from Dutch rule. But here is something actually interesting. On August the 18th in 1590, and I'm actually I want to read this because it's fascinating. I kind of knew about this. I think everybody's heard about the Roanoke colony that was deserted. So on August 18th, 1850, when John White, the governor of Roanoke Island, returned from a supply trip to England, he found the settlement deserted. Okay. White couldn't find no trace of the 100 or so colonists who called Roanoke, located in the present-day North Carolina, home. Okay. There was, and this has always fascinated me, but I've never looked into the details of it, but there are all kinds of rumors about what happened, whether the Indians got him or whatever. There was no sign of violence or disease, which is kind of interesting. Among the missing were White's daughter and granddaughter. Okay, now, get this, granddaughter. Granddaughter was the first British born in Americas. And we know who that was. That was Virginia Dare. Yeah, that was his granddaughter. How about that? So anyway, the colony was founded in 1585 by Sir Walter Raleigh, who, by the way, introduced us to lung disease because he was the one that brought smoking to Europe. Oh, crap. Anyway, and so Roanoke Island was the first settlement in the New World, and archaeologists suspect that an extreme drought between 1587 and 1589 contributed to the colony's demise. Where the settlers went remains a mystery. Okay, so this is a really neat little thing, a piece of history. The Roanoke colony. What happened to the Roanoke colony. I think the space aliens came and got him. So that's my take on that. Well, you've heard the expression "Old Ironsides," right? Okay, Old Ironsides earns its name. It was actually the Navy frigate, the Constitution, that battled the British warship Guerriere off the coast of Nova Scotia as part of the 1812 war. Oh man, we could have lost that one. Anyway, the Constitution was so solidly built that the British shells just bounced off its wooden hull. Now, they battled the ship named Guerriere. So I'm wondering whether the Americans, shot a bunch of holes in that cheesy ship. Oh my God, Anyway, so there. During the battle, the Constitution destroyed the Guerriere's mast and rendered the ship a wreck. So there you have it. What else is new? The Menendez brothers killed their parents in 1809. Oh well. So much for the history. So I think at this point in time, I just want to go and bring out my trusty Wall Street Journal. After all, I know I'm paying a couple of $100 a year for this. So it's got to be something. And here is what made the news. This is what's going on in the world right now here. Hey, sleepy Joe Biden. I shouldn't be saying that. I sound just like Trump. Makes his case to oust Trump, and I don't like that he makes his case to oust Trump. That's kind of a mainstream media twist on things. I mean, makes his case. I would have liked to have seen him makes his case for the presidency. That kind of thing, for the candidate, why he should be the candidate instead of ousting Trump. So I guess that's more important than him becoming president. To oust Trump is really. Anyway, another thing that's in here is that Uber and Lyft were granted an emergency stay by California appeals court that paused the lower court ruling requiring them reclassify their drivers in the state as employees by Friday. So they don't have to do it by this Friday. Let's see. I think it's by next Friday. And in any case, they got to stay. So Uber and Lyft threatened to pull out. And so I thought, maybe I get some comments from my wife, Marge, because she's the premier labor attorney, that is really on top of all of that, And so my question, I guess, is do you think Lyft will go along with it, or will they leave California? What do you think?
I don't think they can afford to stay in California if they have to make all of their drivers employees, because they have to give them sick leave They have to give them benefits. There's all sorts of things you have to give employees in California. And what makes that work, that model work, is the gig economy, that people go in and out of the work when they need it. When they want to drive, they can drive. And now this is going to make people have to keep schedules, and they might even win on appeal, because California's law against the gig economy is so unfair and so out of touch with where we're going as a society.
It's interesting. So you think that employment, will kind of drift into more of a gig economy than, and because, of the savings to the employer, or?
Well, no, I think employees like the idea of being their own boss.
Okay.
And going from place to work. It's how they get more money. When they go from place to place, they can charge more each time they move.
Very true, very true. This is so cool. Well, thank you so much for your comments on that. They were, I loved it because, you got right to the heart of it. And that's really your strength, is to, cut through the shrubbery, so to speak, and get to the roots of the problem. So thank you for your comments. But, I'm going to call on you again because I've got another issue that's kind of related to that. And this is kind of, a sign of the times. I want to talk about this because there's this little tiny article, and there are really some gems hidden in the Wall Street Journal. I love it, especially the opinion section, because oftentimes it's a little more on the conservative side, which appeals to me, and reinforces my biases, because I'm kind of a conservative guy. And, old guys are, because they remember an America that was totally different than it is now. Holy crap. Of course, we're killing off the old guys. They're not going to vote, right? Unless the Republicans also have dead people vote, from the rest homes and whatnot. I don't know. Don't get me started. Okay, now here's the the little article. It says, virtual justice is swift and comfy. Okay, I'm going to just read a little bit of this, and then maybe if you have to say something about this, because it's what's happening here is the great Zoom movement. So grand jurors indict from their couches via Zoom. 9 acquaintances in rural Arizona County chatted on Zoom like old friends, complimenting each other's couches and dogs. I don't want people to see that I'm in my bedroom, one woman said. How do I change the picture? So they're wrestling with this Zoom thing. Those men and women are part of a grand jury that over the next 3 months would indict 276 defendants on Zoom. So some state courts like this one in Mojave County, Arizona, are experimenting with virtual grand juries and allowing panels to consider evidence and hand up indictments from their living rooms. So
you might want to explain what Zoom is, because it might not be something that's used in the future.
Yeah, this is the kind of technology that can disappear real quick. But, well, I don't know. How do you explain Zoom?
When people can't meet face to face, they use this thing called Zoom, and it allows you to look at your computer with the camera and the microphone and talk to other people who are in front of their cameras and microphones. And you can have meetings of up to 50 people all meeting together in one room that's virtual. It doesn't exist anywhere except on the internet.
Yeah, this is really, now we're having virtual hugs. We're having all kinds of virtual stuff. In the television industry has really been turned upside down by that. With all the virtual goings on. So Yeah, it's Zoom. As a matter of fact, I participate in it as with another old guy friend, and I think I may have mentioned it before, but we used to go to McDonald's for breakfast and have a sausage McMuffin, and then you get for $1 more you get an extra one, so it's about the whole total cost is about $5 or $6, I think, for that breakfast, and you get a senior coffee, and that's free, so it's kind of cool. So this guy and I have been doing, my neighbor and I have been doing this for years. At first we used to use that as our weekly walk, because we could walk to McDonald's. But as time went on, we decided crossing the street is kind of dangerous. One of our guys in the group, actually got killed on the street, and so it kind of put got run over, and so it kind of put a damper on things because he was actually the one that was the friendliest. He came and greeted everybody and everything, so we really missed him, and we decided shortly afterwards, hey, let's drive over there. But this year. So now we're all locked down. We've been doing this social distancing and for 5 months or something like this, damn near half the year. And so my friend and I, we decided that, hey, we can have a virtual breakfast. And so we call it McZoom. So one of us has to go out and retrieve the food stuff, and we make our own coffee. So there's no senior coffee, but because that's too much of a hassle. But we do get a bag of these Macs for each of us, the McMuffins, sausage McMuffins with egg, of course, But anyway, so and then we go home. I drop it off, or he drops it off at the house here, and we actually take coffee and munch and talk. And we have about an hour's worth of conversation or something like that. It's kind of fun. So let's see. Well, that's about it for the news, except I want to show you this. My wife got me this really nifty case. Wonder what that is. But you know what it says on here? It says antibacterial mask case. So you keep your mask in here. It's kind of a civilized way to keep a mask. It reminds me of cigarette cases, in the old days. We used to, if you really, felt hoity-toity, you had a cigarette case, and you would open it up and you'd say, a smoke, and in there, I remember having a cigarette case. I'm not sure where I got it. It was from my dad or something, and if I used a cigarette case during my smoking days, of course, the cigarettes that had to be in there were players. They were players. And the players were interesting. They were, of course, not filtered. But they had an oval shape. And when you really felt wealthy, you would go and buy players. It's kind of like buying Hennessy brandy or something, like that. Anyway, so here's, my mask. And I just want to demonstrate, how when we leave the house, this is how we look. We have all kinds of different ones, but this is this happens to be one of my favorites right now because it, you see this little nose piece right here, it kind of really hugs your nose. And that means when you breathe out and you're wearing glasses over the top of it, they don't fog up as much. And so you could walk, we're wearing sunglasses, so we go in the store, and, with the regular masks, they immediately fog up, and it's kind of and I think you can still hear me if I'm not mistaken. But you go out in the world right now, our world, Southern California, this is how people look. All different kinds of masks. Some of them have gaiters that they put over them, and they turn out to be not such a good thing. But anyway, so now I've contaminated this thing. So what do we do with it? Well, you can do all kinds of things with it. You can wash it, right? You can wash it, scrub it, and you can, or you can put it in UV light boxes, of which we have a couple of them. So what I'll do is I'll put that in a UV box, and well, I guess it contaminates it. I mean, decontaminates it, yeah, because the germs are invisible, so I don't know what really happens in there, but it's supposed to be. So Now the box will get closed so that it's, remains antimicrobial. And yeah, that's how this works. So, I've already used 20 minutes of this video, and this is probably going to be one of my longest ones, because what I want to really talk about is I want to talk about writing. Okay, and why do I want to talk about writing? It's because kids are now going back to school, sort of, and they're going back virtually in many cases. But we also, they also have to be taught, something. It has to be really tough for, let's say, kindergartners, because they're starting to learn how to write and everything. And so it's such a different world, and I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I know that, and we will get through it. I have no doubt about it. Before I get into this, though, I really did want to talk about the COVID statistics right now. California has 654,000 cases as of now, the latest statistics, 11,800 dead. So from COVID-19. LA itself has darn near half of that statistic, 227,000 and 5,446 dead. So that's what's going on in the immediate area. Now, the U.S., total in the U.S. has 5.61 million right now, of which 2.85 million recovered. They finally have enough data, to publish a recovery on COVID, and but 112,000 have died, and so the original models said that we might get to 150 to 200,000 if we don't do anything. So wearing masks and social distancing, and people are really unhappy with all this because it's been going on way too long, but it's making some sort of an impact. And in California, we actually see there's a decline in ICU admissions, and also a decline in death. So the reinfection rate in New York is actually kind of stabilized, according to Governor Cuomo right now. I don't know whether he's got the right information, but he's a Democrat, okay? So who knows? Yeah, it's. I know I'm getting around a bit, but what really kind of offended me about Joe Biden, and I've always liked Joe because we've known him for the last umpteen decades. He's always been in the Senate, for a long time, and he, flipped and flopped, as the politicians do, because he kind of goes with the wind. And he's going with the wind again because the Democrats have not demonstrated any kind of respect for the flag at all. Okay, so if somebody desecrates the flag, if they don't trash somebody who it was against it, then at least they're silent about it. But when you see Joe accepting the nomination for the candidacy for the Democratic Party, there are probably around a dozen flags in the back. In fact, his background is full of flags. And I find that to be, the height of hypocrisy. So, Joe is not my favorite guy right now. Anyway. And I would never vote for a Democrat anyway. And you know that. All right.
Well, I got to say something about this. Okay. The thing that really bothers me about the Democratic convention that we just witnessed this last week is there was not one proposal about how to make anything better. Every single person only talked about getting rid of Trump. They didn't talk about how to make this country better or what plans they had.
The specifics weren't there, were they?
It's as if their whole platform is get rid of Trump, and they don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah. And, the strange thing is that, they're talking about bringing us together. Look at how did they try to bring us together in the, they just won the House of Representatives during the last election, midterm election, and they created a bigger divide than ever, you know, Russia probe and all that bullshit, anyway. So, yeah, there is a guy that was elected in 2016, that really tried to shake up the politics in Washington. And the denizens of the Washington swamp don't like it. They want things as usual. Anyway, yeah, so that's our political speech, I think. So let's see, where do we go from here? Yeah, I wanted to talk about writing. Writing is interesting because I have now witnessed the degradation of writing in the schools. As a matter of fact, there has been an effort for some time now, and some schools, and maybe most of them, just say print only, no cursive writing, because we can't read your cursive writing. What they're missing out on is the discipline that it takes to produce cursive writing, and that could have, I can't really talk about that in terms of what kind of effect that has on an adult human, because I don't know. But I think it's a positive effect if you develop that discipline early of the mechanical skills, because with the mechanical skills, also mental skills are developed of discipline.
Synapses in the brain.
Synapses in the brain. It takes to, and I'm going to talk some more about this because it's. I actually want to tell you how I learned how to write. Okay, in Germany, 75 years ago. Yeah, 75 years ago. I was 6, right? I was going to school. So, and that was how writing was taught. But writing has been under suspicion for thousands of years, actually, because, while the Sumerians, 10,000, 7 or almost 10,000 years, 10,000 BC, actually, or let's say 10,000, 13,000 years ago. I'm not sure what is the earliest writing. It may have been even the Rig Veda, but but anyway, it was thousands of years ago. We started to write. We encountered civilizations like Australia and indigenous people that never heard of writing and thought what a great idea that was. And of course, we've been writing for thousands of years, but Socrates really never wrote anything. Okay, and he had a really dim view about writing. Plato had to write everything that Socrates said, and his dim view about writing was, the guy that invented writing, thinks he's done such a great thing because, he leaves his mark for posterity, his thoughts, to the future, and you can communicate your thoughts, And what he said, basically he said, well, there are a couple of things, is one is the communication really isn't that clear because I'm not there. Okay. Which is kind of a good point in a way. The clearest communication probably is when you're there because, you can instantly correct whatever you misspoke or whatever false impression somebody gets, and so forth. So that the best communication really is the verbal communication. So that's why he never wrote anything, because he didn't want to be misunderstood. Of course, he took that a little bit too far. But the other thing that he said, it's also made people stupid. Okay. Because you no longer have to remember anything. This is a guy that grew up, where people memorized, they had their rhapsodes walking around Greece, and singing about the Iliad, and Troy and so on and so forth. And these people memorized this stuff and they passed it along for generations, The first time that we know of that the Iliad was sung, according to history, they think the Trojan War was about 1200 BC, and around 800 or so, the Homer, was kind of emerged, if there really was such a guy as Homer. And if you have to go, you have to go. And in any case, so there was this the diatribe on writing. So what has happened? Public education, almost public education, really started with Charlemagne. So that was about 900 AD or so when Charlemagne was around. And what he decreed is that, you churches and you priests and monks that are so highly educated, you learn how to read and write, you should teach this to the common man. And of course, that shook up the church because, oh my God, these are our secret books and all that kind of stuff. So they took a dim view of it, but nevertheless, he forced them to do this. And so now the monasteries began to teach. Of course, it still wasn't for everybody. It was, actually, a lot of women were first involved in this because they would send their daughters to the monastery for an education, and so it was kind of a ripening for them, to become a really a worthy or a valued bride, because they had to do that. Anyway, so from there on, we got writing happened in the universities and so forth, and it was all in the institutions, mostly of the churches, and then it bled into the public private institutions of writing and learning, and the Jesuits had a lot to do with it. They would begin to establish schools and so forth, and they were the highly educated ones, and so knowledge of writing and poetry and novels kind of bled into public education. It became public education. In Germany, basically the German language was codified with Martin Luther when he translated the Bible from Latin to German. By the way, this German is still well understood now because that was basically our High German. It's morphed some, it's changed some, but Luther's Bible can be easily read by anybody. And it's not even as strange as the King James Version, so. But anyway, so the Bible was translated, and of course that gave all the pontiffs, all kinds of headaches because, oh my God, the profane will now say, hey, you're wrong, and you've been told this and that. And so actually it kind of ushered in the Age of Enlightenment. And, I don't want to bash public education too much, but but what has happened, if we just take one piece of knowledge and writing I'm talking about, it's really deteriorated as soon as we had public education. For instance, people that, the old people that grew up in the 30s and 40s, here, the ones that are still alive, their handwriting is really beautiful, okay, for the most part, and you can read it and all that kind of stuff. And they write in cursive. And I remember my dad, who I thought had great handwriting, because it looked like, some sort of an artsy thing. He says, oh, this is nothing. Because, my older brother was educated in Russian schools, and the Russian schools had the Orthodox education. They were, Greek Orthodox. So it was also, to link to religion. And Robert's, my father's brother, Robert, his handwriting, I've actually seen samples of it, it's calligraphy, okay? So in other words, years ago, people took great pains in teaching handwriting, and we're just kind of letting it go, okay? And I'm not sure that's a really good thing, because again, like I said in the beginning, I think there's some sort of value that actually translates into adulthood, with that. So I can give you an example of my handwriting, because I've prepared some notes for today's talk, and here is what I call Newswit notes, and there they are. So that's my handwriting, and to a kid today, he doesn't know how to read this, And I remember a comment because our son Patrick took on cursive writing, and his writing is pretty good in terms of the skill. And he remarked that somebody in junior college where he went, he saw Patrick's handwriting, and he says, "Dude, you write like the Constitution." Oh, screw that. Oh man, so bad. So I'm gonna just briefly show you how I learned how to write, and how kids in my generation learned how to write. And I'm not sure the Germans still do that, so I don't have any knowledge of this, but I'm going to show you my first writing tablet. That's not my first writing tablet, but it is the writing tablet that we used. It's very much like that. I just ordered that, and as a matter of fact, you can see in the back, what it cost and whatnot. I ordered that, and it actually came from Germany. So you ask, well, looks like a blackboard, right? Yeah, it looks like a blackboard. So this is actually from Flintstone's quarry. This is a piece of slate, okay? And blackboards, even large ones were slate, okay? So, and it was really, it was an easy way to write and being able to erase, because paper was expensive, to make paper. So this is how we learned to write. Now, I want to tell you that my first, we called that a Schiefertafel, and Schiefer just means in German, and English is slate. So this is a slate tablet. And what did you write with on it? Well, there was this slate stylus. And that slate stylus in Germany is called a Griffel. Now, what I remember of this Griffel is I don't remember it to be that little and that skinny. But, the memory is from a 6-year-old, okay? So, who knows? But I want to show you that you can actually write on this. And I'm going to just write on here, Newswit 2020. Okay. There you go. So you see, you can actually see it's writing on it. Now, you notice there's a hole here. Okay. Oh, why is there a hole there? Do you hang it up? No. We actually had a sponge tied to this. There was a sponge tied from that. And so you could, and of course I don't have a sponge tied to this, but I brought a sponge. And then what you do is you just kind of erase that, so it's gone. And once it's dried up, you can use it again. So, and there's a front and a back. And what we had, in the beginning, we did have lines on it, and the lines were kind of interesting in that, and I don't know whether I can show you, but there were red lines here. So in the beginning, in kindergarten, or first grade actually, they had lines that went something like this, and then there was a smaller line, narrower line, and then one more. And so what you did with this, I don't know whether that can be seen, probably not very well. So what you did with this is you precisely wrote in that line. So I just, I don't know, I just made up a German word. And so I don't know whether you could hear this because it grates on your ears. And I know my wife will cringe at this, but there is a tremendous amount of resistance in writing. And I tell you, what I remember, one of my worst things was to actually make a diagonal line. It was really hard to do for little kids to make a diagonal line. It was easy to do this. It was easy to do this. But in Germany, you write the number one. The number one is written like this. That's a number 1. It almost looks like a 7. But the 7 is different because what we do with the 7 is we do this. And now, you know it's a 7. It's 17. All right. So I remember, that this diagonal line here that I show you, I remember how tough that was. Tears rolled down my eyes because my dad was really unhappy when the line looked something like this. So that was typical because it was really hard to do that. So see, this is an example of the skill that you needed to have, to learn. And so from the Slate tablet or the Schiefertafel and the Griffel, which was also Slate, we then began to graduate to paper. But with paper, there were fountain pens. We were not allowed to use a fountain pen. We had inkwells. Okay, we had inkwells, and the inkwell was to dip in a stylus that had the tip of a fountain pen. Those tips were replaced. You could replace them. And then some of them were broader because, people that know about calligraphy still use those today because that's how you make thicker lines, thinner lines, and so forth. So we used that calligraphy pen to learn how to write on paper. So you could, for instance, write an entire sheet of, they made us write everything on that, like if you had what would be the English word for Aufsatz? When you given a thing to write.
An assignment?
An assignment, but a written assignment.
Essay.
An essay. Essay would be Aufsatz. See, it's a good thing to know 2 languages, because if the word escapes you in one, maybe you can catch it in the other one. So, but then you have to have somebody to understand it or translate it. It's funny. So, yeah, Aufsatz. So we wrote our entire thing. Now, it could happen that if you took too much ink, you get almost done with a page, and it made a drop of ink. Well, then the whole thing was ruined. You could no longer turn that in. Guess what? You turned that over. You had to start over again. Now, in order to learn to write, we had what they call Schönschreibenstunde, which means pretty writing hour. Okay, so every day, we the teacher would write things on it. We had to copy it. Then he'd come around and then grade it. So I think we're really missing the boat. And when it comes to education in terms of writing, because did it make me a better person? Could I have been some sort of a master criminal because I was fairly bright, and could have gone off the rails? I don't know. Nobody knows, what can happen to you. Probably. I bet you who was it, Lecter? From Silence in the Lambs. I'm sure his handwriting was beautiful. Because he was so highly intelligent. What a crackpot, though. So my vote is for writing, but I think it's like the sneeze in the wilderness. Nobody cares. Because we're about to make a transition to probably writing will actually probably go out of style, once voice comes up really quick. Now, I just want to say one more thing about that, or a couple of more things. God, 45 minutes, I can't believe it. So you notice that we went from this really hard way to a high friction way to learn how to write, which was a good thing, then to graduated to a lesser friction, and then ultimately it became the fountain pen, which had its, and we were able to write with a fountain pen. And so then the Americans brought us the ballpoint pen. Oh, my dad had one of the first ballpoint pens, and they would still leave a smudge now and then, you know what I mean? But what was remarkable is that, the ink dried faster, so you could turn the page faster, all this kind of stuff, because, you had to use blotters before, otherwise it'd smear the page. And and so it went to the ballpoint pen, but the schools would not allow ballpoint pen because they understood that the less friction and the faster people write, the less discipline it takes. Okay, so they did not allow ballpoint pens in education for a long time. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember it because we used mostly pencils, and for writing. So most of our writing was in pencil, because even fountain pen was for formal writing. So basically, we wrote in pencil. So we've come from the Flintstone Slate tablet to the computer where we write by a keyboard to this device. Okay, and this device is called the Remarkable, and it is remarkable because I can take and I can translate that into the printed word and just send it to somebody. So I can continue with my cursive writing the way I have, and still, send it to somebody who can't understand it. This is really something because it's connected to the internet, the cloud, and all that. So the Remarkable is indeed remarkable, and it's it's a computer. And the other thing is, and I think that may have inspired today's episode somewhat, when I saw that my wife was using the Remarkable, I said, you know what, I want one. And so I think she bought me one for Christmas, didn't you? Or
No,
something.
I just bought it for you.
So anyway, she just bought me one. And so I have this now, and I use it. I still don't use it to its full capability, but I'm using it. And the reason I like to use it is because when you use this stylus on it, it feels a little bit like the Slate tablet. And, my handwriting in ballpoint pen wouldn't actually be that good, because this has got a little more resistance. And I didn't have to make any effort to write anything nice. I just wrote it, so that was it, so. Anyway, I think we're going to finish this. So I hope this was fun. I want whoever is listening to this, maybe years from now, maybe not, maybe nobody will ever listen to it. But if you do, this is, I'm actually putting myself out there. I'm putting myself out there so that kind of what I'm thinking. You look at the stuff in the background. What's important to me is behind me. You can see my family and things like that. So you can see that. And I really love to have my wife here with me, and one of the smartest people that I've ever come across. And I was lucky enough to catch her. So wow. Anyway, so with that, I will bid you farewell. Auf Wiedersehen, and so long.